Hello, 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 and welcome back to Scoutcast, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL mode, and look at these swanky new graphics. I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling quite made up tonight, especially because I've got my boys back. Nacho, how's it going, man? It's been a long time.
Oh, mate, it feels like a lifetime. Like, we've obviously been chatting behind the scenes, but to actually be live for the first time this season, properly when the game is launched, it's a bit emotional, actually. It feels a little bit emotional. And I'm so glad we have so much to talk about because at one point we were thinking, oh my God, is there actually going to be much to talk about? Now we have basically everything to talk about. So I am buzzing to get through this one today.
Good man. And Hibbo, just to warn you, mate, I think if you go back a little bit, we can hear your breathing. It's almost like an OnlyFans account. This is lovely. Yeah. Hibbo, you're back as well. How's it going, my man? It's been a while.
It's been about a fortnight, maybe 2 weeks for us because we did the stream with Az, but this is the first one back as a three ball, and the trio's reunited. The ink has dried in the contracts, and we're all back for another season. Delighted to be. So I think the game launched Monday morning. Usually I'm kind of fastest finger first, but I'd been off work for about 2 weeks in annual leave. Wall-to-wall meetings, only managed a five-digit rank, so kind of shame on me. But no, excited to get going. We obviously have a lot to talk about. There's lots of changes to the game for the season ahead, and I know you're going to run through these now. But no, I think we have an exciting game, and I'm really looking forward to getting going.
I'm not going to lie, that's probably the understatement of the season already, is that we've got a lot to talk about tonight. we would have a lot to talk about if the game didn't change at all, because we'd be talking about prices, we'd be talking about our drafts. There has been so many new rules this year, which is probably, Nacho, am I right in thinking this is probably the biggest overhaul to FPL we've seen, 10, 12 years?
I think it has to be really because, like I said, we're going to go through kind of like the 3 or 4 huge things that have changed. And for me, it's just opened up so many different avenues for managers to go down. I think it's one of the most exciting seasons we're going into because whereas before we had so many managers doing the exact same thing, I think managers can be as expansive as they want this year with what they have announced. So I think it's a really good upgrade, but we're obviously going to talk through them specifically, each and every one.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I completely agree with you that I think this is just going to lend itself to so many different tactics because everything we've heard negative-wise in the last 5-6 years has all been about a template and how everybody's got the same route, same template, things like that. I think this is going to change things quite a bit. And Hibbo, obviously we're going to go into things in a bit of detail in a minute, but I would say 90% has been pretty positive in terms of change.
I think if you're going to take an overall view of, I suppose, all the changes, I do agree. Like I do think about 90, maybe 95% I'm kind of happy with.
Yeah.
There's some that are, like say like the additional chips, it won't be like everybody's liking, purists of like a really pure game. One wild card once upon a time who doesn't really like chips anyway. They won't be particularly keen to have 6 chips. But I don't mind it. I think it's good for engagement. I think the only real seemingly blunder was AFCON, but it's what we've got. It's the hand that we're dealt, and I think all we can do is try and play through the season as best as we possibly can. And I think you just nearly think of AFCON, we'll talk about it later. I think you think of it nearly like a third wildcard. That's almost what it's become. So,
Yeah. Hibbo's alluded to it there. One of the new rules was about the AFCON and it was about AFCON and the fact that there's going to be a lot of players leaving and they've kind of done something to help us with that, which we'll explain a little bit later on as well. But to talk you through what we are going to be talking about tonight, we're going to be talking about the fact that there are more chips than ever. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities to use chips and a lot more opportunities to use them in single game weeks, which I know a lot of people have wanted. We're going to be talking about the bonus points and the assists, which are very, very welcome changes. Going to be talking about some new leagues, which people are automatically going to be entered into. Going to be talking about defensive contributions, which I didn't think would ever come into FPL, but it has this season, and in a good way, I think, actually. We're going to be talking about some of the new prices, some of the new position changes for certain players, and then, and yes, it will be happening tonight, we will be looking at our drafts as well. I know why Nacho was looking nervous then, because he thought I was going to say your punishments were going to be happening, boys. When can we expect that to happen? We got swanky new graphics. Surely they need to be accompanied by your gorgeous singing voices.
I mean, Hibbo, I can't believe we agreed to do it live on stream. I think we must have had a few drinks that stream, 100%. It will happen, 100%.
Good.
But I feel like we got too much to talk about right now. So let's push it back a little bit. Maybe middle of this preseason we'll do it.
Oh,
We got less content.
I'll do it next week.
Next week? Should we do next week?
Man.
Okay, I'll get some singing classes.
Yes, and if Hibbo doesn't sing the cause, I'm going to be gutted. Right, let's
I'm going to
have a
sing
look.
Barbie.
Yeah, I bet you are. Let's have I love Aqua. Right, let's have a look at. Obviously, the FPL game launched on Monday. It launched at about 12:30, which was during my lunch break, so I was extremely happy. The game launched, and the big thing this year is your team, your league, your game. So, as Nacho has already said, how with all the different changes, how there's more avenues to go down, less template, things like that, which I guess we've been calling for quite a bit. Now, Scout, who obviously Fantasy Football Scout, we are the Scoutcast, they are ready. They are absolutely ready to help you this season. FPL has changed, and FPL Scout is ready, so you can be ready as well. You can have chip strategy tools, which are great. So when you become a member, you can go in there and plan your chips, which remember, there's 8 of them this season, so you're going to need that.
Yeah.
We have reveals from elite FPL managers and their articles, and I'm not going to lie, Scout hands down has the best articles out of any website that you can possibly go on about fantasy football. So that's fantastic. There's also new drop downs for the defensive contributions. There's so much stuff in there. And this advert here is just about the chips, but there is so much there. And I believe, and it's in the chat at the moment, there's 47% off membership at the moment. So do make sure you have a look. And if you don't want to use that one, use one of ours. That's absolutely fine as well. But there's lots of people in the chat as well who are obviously here trying to get the best out of what we've got. This will always be free, Scoutcast, but make sure you jump into the members section as well, because it is genuinely fantastic. And the stuff that they've got ready already, you'll be shocked. It is absolutely brilliant. So make sure you do have a look, and make sure you use any of the links below to go on and have a look for yourself as well. Now, one of the first new rules this season is that there are going to be more chips. So managers are going to get 2 of every chip this season. In game weeks 1 to 19, you've got your bench boost, free hit, triple captain and wildcard. And then in game weeks 20 to 38, you again have your bench boost, free hit, triple captain, wildcard. Now, we've been calling for this for a little while, or some people have, because it's usually, if you've got an engaged manager that knows what they're doing, they save their chips until the double game weeks later on in the season, and it's the best time to use them. Usually it's the best time to use them. But it does mean that kind of excitement goes, because if you were using them in single game weeks in the first half of the season, it's quite exciting to know that people are using them at different times against different promoted teams, against different, whatever it is. So Nacho, do you think this is a welcome change? And straight away, are you thinking, well, actually, I think there's a bit of a strategy you can do straight away here?
Yeah, I think when it first got announced, I felt like kind of the grumpy old man, and I was like, oh, this is too much chaos. I like my simple strategy of keeping all my chips to the end of the season and using them in fun double and blank game weeks. But of course, I think the prediction right now, and look, things can happen in the world, which means that doubles and blanks do happen, but we are anticipating it to be a bit more of a boring season based on the fixtures. So I do like what they have done here in terms of the chips integration. I mean, when you are playing a game, yes, being tactical is part of it, and holding on your chips at the end of the season is kind of why we do that. But I also think there is a lot of tactics to play this strategy of 4 chips in the opening 19 game weeks. And I actually am now really on board with it. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but for me, I think it's really exciting, the fact that we've got 4 chips that we have to use between now and game week 19. And I'm quite interested to see how different managers are going to go about their own interpretations of it. Because, as you mentioned, is there a way to actually get ahead of the game in game week 1? And a lot of people are talking about a bench boost in game week 1, which is becoming quite a popular strategy already for a lot of people. I think we might talk about it later on, but for me, spoiler alert, the draft that I have built is in preparation for a bench boost in game week 1 to get it out of the way. So I know the reactions by you boys, I'm feeling I've done the wrong thing here, but
No,
let me know your what are you
it's
thinking,
all
guys?
good.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
It was something I was going to bring up, actually, because people have been talking about Bench Boost 1 for years, haven't they? In terms of, you get it out of the way, you don't need to worry about your bench anymore, you don't need to put money into your bench. And I'm assuming that's the way you're thinking about it. Now, Hibbo, straight away when we got these chips, did you think, bench boost game week 1, I've got to think about it.
I think it's definitely an option. And for people wondering why you would do this, is like what you're effectively doing is you're able to effectively wildcard, although it's not a wildcard because it's a brand new team. You're effectively able to wildcard and bench boost in the same week. So that's the appeal, because normally when we're playing long ball strategy and double game weeks, you're bench boosting the week before, and there's always the risk of injury, suspension, rotation, whatever. Whereas first game week of the season, you would like to think teams might kind of feel their strongest sides, but you can also deploy a chip, come out to the blocks as strong as possible. So I think the appeal for BB1's definitely there. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but in terms of the chips overall, I like what the game's done. I think it's the intentions for retention and engagement purposes, but I think it also sets up for a very aggressive game, and I think there's the opportunity to really front load your season, because like if you think, say, about TC, think about all the chips. Like, I think the established meta had become so well known. Everybody watches Ben Krillin. Everybody's watching Planet FPL. They're looking for the predictions for the double game weeks. They're thinking, right, I'm going to bench boost here, free hit here, trouble captain here. And it had all become a bit played out. Whereas I think now what it's doing, it's setting you a bit of a challenge. For example, trouble captain, who could you use it on? Like, Man City have Burnley game week 6, Chelsea have Sunderland game week 9, Liverpool have Sunderland game week 14, Man City have Sunderland game week 15. So there's these kind of single game week triple captain opportunities that people are going to be able to pick and choose as they go, and that's just one of the chips. And no, I think it's going to make for a really, really interesting season. But BB1, I'm not decided, but I do think we'll touch on AFCON a wee bit more depth. But because you're getting those extra transfers in game week 16, I think it makes a lot of sense to go harder to the blocks for like 4 or 5 game weeks. Wildcard, start trying to build transfers again, and then with the additional transfers around game week 16, you can effectively set your team up around Christmas for the Christmas period. So I do think it's set up for like very aggressive game, and it's moving away from that kind of hardwired thinking about, we have to use our chips in double game weeks, because the chances are we won't have one on the first half of the season. So
no, exactly. And bench boost game week 1, Nacho, I mean, Hibbo was just saying there about being more aggressive this season because of the amount of transfers we'll have, the chips we'll have, and all that kind of stuff. And actually, playing aggressively last season would have done you quite well if you'd have ditched Haaland for Salah earlier, little things like that, which, sorry if there's people in the chat that are still pained by that. But do you feel confident this season being able to pick 15 players you know are definitely going to start in game week 1?
That is the big question right now. That is the big question, because I do think there are teams that we know exactly what is going to be put out for them. But with the transfer window being so busy this year, it does feel like all teams are investing pretty heavy. And we've also got, obviously, new managers that either joined halfway through the season or are coming in this year. I think it's going to be harder than we are anticipating to predict these teams. And of course, the problem is, yes, we might be able to predict, the big teams like Arsenal, Man City, maybe. It's the other teams that are the cheaper options that we have to fill our squads with that might actually be the tricky ones. So I think we're closer to the deadline, watch more preseason games, be a bit more active with the selections. I do think we will be able to establish those players that are expected minutes are going to be higher. And of course, with the defensive contribution, we'll talk about it later coming into the game, I do think it makes those boring picks a bit more elevated as an option, whereas before picking a centre back, you'd be like, this is so boring. A bit more of a reason to pick those options that are a bit more guaranteed. So I, for one, think game week 1 is still a good time to play the bench boost based on predicted minutes. I think we just have to do the research on the preseason games. No,
nice. It'll be interesting to see as the weeks go on whether those people that are on bench boost stay on bench boost by the time that it actually kicks off, because I feel like it's one of those things where unless you accidentally play it, sorry, Az had to mention it, game week 1, unless you accidentally play it, it is a big deal kind of doing it in that first week, isn't it? But it's such a random chip anyway. Like, how many points are you really expecting? If you can get 8 points out of it, you're probably quite happy, aren't you?
Anyone who's played the game long enough knows that it's very rare bench boost is an absolute home run. So, as long as your bench plays and they rack up a couple of points, happy days, get out of the way. You're not then wasting loads of transfers in this first half of the season trying to build a squad of 15 and also passing up on opportunities on other players.
Yeah. And I should mention as well, no more assistant manager. Yes. Yes. So I'm extremely happy about that because I hated that chip. Anyway, let's move on to the next new change that happened. So the next new change that happened was there's a slight tweak in bonus points. If you want to see a detailed explanation as to what's happened with the bonus points, you can go straight on the FPL website, which has had a few issues, but I think they're changing them at the moment. You can go straight on the website and you have a look at the detailed ones. Two of the biggest things there, though, is you now get a lot more bonus points for goal line clearances, which is quite interesting. And you also get less bonus points for penalties scored because it's now going down as a penalty scored, not as a goal. And all positions get the same amount of bonus points depending on when they score a penalty or if they score a penalty. So a few little differences there. Hibbo, do you see your thinking changing when you're picking players based on these bonus point changes at all?
Not really. I think they've been quite subtle. I think most of them have been very well thought, and I think the penalty nerf wasn't really unexpected because, like, anybody that uses Twitter knows how Mark feels about penalties, and he ranted quite a bit about it last season. But that's the rule. So, like, a penalty goal is worth 12 BPS, but for a striker, normally that goal would be 24. So it's quite a drop if a striker scores a pen now, whereas a midfielder, their goals are normally 18 BPS. So, like, if we look last season at kind of cheap strikers that were kind of pen reliant, they're going to get hit hardest. I think a good example of that's João Pedro. But I think it's nice to bring this into context because Walt Tumbers at Scout provided me with a bit of data. And he basically said, like, from the 10 goals that Pedro scored last season, 5 of them were penalties. So, like, Will has basically remodeled the bonus. And what would have happened to Pedro was he would have dropped from 26 bonus points to 21. So, it's maybe not the huge difference that you would think it is. Like, a reduction of 5 over the season isn't really a deal breaker if you're talking about a player who's... We don't really have a 5.5 million forward this season. But he was last season. But I suppose that's kind of touching on the price. And I think pricing's quite tough. But no, I don't think it's that much of a deal breaker. Shot saves for goalkeepers, I think.
Yeah.
Keepers that make saves inside the box have got a slight boost. So I think if we looked at last season's data, I think Mark Flecken would have had 6 more bonus points because there was a few occasions where, like, Flecken was like the hero. Like, he made 10 saves in a game and then ultimately he lost his clean sheet in maybe the 93rd minute.
Yes, I owned him in that game, yes.
But those are the kind of games where Flecken probably would have ended up with top bonus under this new rule. But I think the changes they're subtle. Goal line clearances don't happen as often as people think.
No,
is one point. So, like, automatically people saw that jump from 3 to 9 and were like, wow, this is huge. But I think the highest individual tally of goal line clearances was 3, I think, last season. So it's not what people think it is, but it kind of does gear towards defenders as well when you consider tackles. I think tackles 1 is also on there. So I think there's a couple of changes which kind of suit maybe centre backs.
That's my challenge for you for next week, Hibbo. I want a table full of who makes the most goal line clearances in the league. Or who stands on the back post the most. That's what I would like. Yeah, exactly. It was like a Razor Ruddock position. Nacho, the other big change that's happened is assists. There's going to be more assists this season because they have taken away the intended target rule and they've added it into a more of a, as long as they whip it in and it's in the box and it lands at somebody without more than one deflection, basically you get the assist for it, which I think is probably one of the best things they've done to FPL in a while is putting this in, because some of these things that don't get assists are ridiculous. I think they showed it on the FPL official account where the one where Isak went through absolutely everybody, was on the byline and managed to go through about 3 or 4 people, crossed it in, got a slight deflection. I think it was Jacob Murphy tapped it in and he didn't get the assist for it. And you think, come on. Whereas now, I don't think there's going to be as many people getting frustrated at the lack of assists as there was last year, is there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anything that brings more points to the game, I think we are just going to be happy about it because, look, we're always going to find ways to get angry. Like we are as a community. We're always going to find ways to get annoyed. You know, we love our rants, don't we? That's all part of it, really. That's when we get older, that's kind of what makes our day. But this has to be a better thing, really. It's going to be way more clear when assists are actually assists rather than making up some mad excuse that they have done in the past. So I'm all for it. I don't see why anybody would be against it, to be honest with you.
I like it. I think it's good, and I think it means more points to more avenues to points, which, like you said, is what most people want anyway. So I think it's a really good change. Slightly different one here as well, which was I didn't see this one coming, which is quite interesting. Hibbo, they've now got a top 1% league and a top 10% league. So the season before, if you finished in the top 10%, you're automatically entered in. If you finished in the top 1%, you're automatically entered in. Obviously, us being on the Scoutcast, we're all in the top 1%. Do you think it's a nice little change?
I think it's a nice change because we're all in the top 1%.
Yeah.
So, like, you look at these other pods out there in the community, these are good guys, they're good podcasters, don't get me wrong. But they're not all in the top 1%, so I just want to put on record, nana boo boo, my boys are better than your boys. And come at us. Do you know what I mean? Because we are the boys.
No, I think
this is a nice.
Yeah,
I think it's
a spell or something there. I don't know what's going on.
I think this is a nice wee addition. I think it's a fun change to the game, and I think it's a nice thing. So anybody that came inside maybe like the top 111,000 or something have all gone under
114, I think it is.
114,000 have all gone in the top 1% league. So it's obviously the place to be because we're in there. But I think it adds just a wee fun element to the game, and it's it does no harm. I think it's nice.
Imagine being a grown man coming on a stream and saying nana boo boo without with a straight face. Oh, we are so back, people. We are so back. Right. Now, one of the massive changes that did happen this year is obviously defensive contributions. So defenders, well, not just defenders, actually, all players can now accumulate defensive contributions. And if they manage to reach their threshold, then they get 2 extra points. They cannot get more than 2 points. They cannot get 1 point. It's literally 0 or 2 they'll get from their defensive contributions. And that is based on their clearances, blocks, interceptions, and tackles, I think it is, their CBIT. So as you can see on the screen here, the most defensive contribution points from last season, James Tarkowski would have got an extra 44 points last season, which is quite massive actually, and would have put him up to 149, which considering Everton went on a good run of keeping clean sheets, that's quite impressive. Bednarek was second, obviously he's not in the league now. Howson was third, he's not in the league now either. Murillo with 38, you had Wout Weiss, who's not in the league either. Lacroix, Branthwaite, I like this because I'm naming players from teams that aren't in the top 6, which makes sense because they're not making all the tackles, they're having possession, aren't they? So, Nacho, do you think this is something that actually a lot of people were worried about something like this coming in, but with the fact that it's capped at only 2 points and the way they brought it in, I think it's going to bring a lot of other players into certain game weeks, isn't it? And it seems quite positive how it was seen by people when it first came out.
Yeah, I think definitely we've been speaking about for ages, haven't we, where some of the best players in the league, people like Caicedo, Declan Rice and all, have just never been fantasy options. And this has brought them at least into the conversation. Now, in terms of the defenders that we can see on the screen right now, I would argue some of those were still options regardless. Tarkowski's always a decent investment in that Everton team. But getting those 2 additional points does make a difference, and it is absolutely something that we need to consider. And it might be the difference between investing in a centre back as opposed to a full back who occasionally might get an assist or a goal. So it definitely brings these centre backs into the equation. I'm less bullish on it than others. I mean, when it comes to the defenders, I think the only thing we really need to focus on is going to be focusing on clearances per 90 minutes, and it's going to be the tackles. Like blocks per 90, defenders just don't rack up tons of blocks. And when it comes to what's the other one? Sorry, interceptions. Again, They don't really rack up loads of those. So it's all about the clearances and the tackles for defenders. And look, you're not going to pick a player and they're going to get defensive contributions each and every week. But I do think those managers that spend a bit of time checking out the data and identifying the players that are stand out, like these ones here, I think it will add an aspect to the game, which is positive, definitely. And I'm already looking at some of these players on the list, like a Tarkowski, for example.
And actually, it's really nice being able to watch a game if you're watching, it's a early kickoff on a Saturday, and you're watching Everton play, and you're watching Tarkowski, and you go, he's hit his 2 points. That's amazing, and you get to watch him and watch those clearances, and then he concedes in the 96th minute. You've still got those 2 points, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it doesn't feel as bad as when they used to lose them, and obviously it's going to help his bonus a little bit as well. So I think it's a nice new addition. And Hibbo, with these changes, do you think we're going to be seeing a change in the guard in terms of moving from everybody gets the wing backs and the full backs straight away, whereas now, do you think centre backs are going to be higher up the menu than wing backs?
I think it completely changes the thinking with regards to defenders.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned it in chips, like the meta, like most effective tactics available in the game were kind of well established, and I think the introduction of CBAT has definitely shaken that up a bit, because we were very hardwired on their thinking. But I think what Nacho says is a great point. Like, stylistically, I think we have to think about the team, I think, first that the player plays on. So, like, they like Everton. Like, so Tarkowski last season, he had like 209 clearances, 42 blocks, 41 interceptions, 64 successful tackles, inside 33 appearances. So, like, you can see from that the large bulk of what he was doing is clearances. So centre-backs are obviously going to be the main for that, but that doesn't carry across for all teams. So, like, I think I looked at Tarkowski has 44 defensive contribution points. I looked at Gabriel from Arsenal, and I think he had 4.
Yeah.
So that's a massive difference, because I think if we're looking in terms of the game pricing, Tarkowski was due a bump because I think Everton had 15 clean sheets. So he should have went up anyway. He was 4.5 million. But now the introduction of CABT means he obviously had to go up again. But you're looking at Arsenal defenders that are, what are they scoring, about 140 points, 150 points, maybe less last season. They're coming in around 6 million, but Gabriel's not doing much in terms of CABT. So I think it's kind of setting a challenge. Are these big CBAT defenders optimal?
Yeah.
And what you're seeing in drafts at the minute is people going for a couple of Arsenal defenders, despite the fact that I don't think Arsenal's fixture run's particularly good in the first 6. But then you're seeing Tarkowski with Leeds, Milenkovic has a couple of good fixtures, and you're thinking, is the ceiling for these players now like 10 points? Can they do 10? Can a defender do 10 points with a clean sheet? Because we never saw that before. So, like, a defender that goes out, keeps a clean sheet, gets 3 bonus points and gets a 2 DC points.
Yeah.
You're talking about an 11-point return. 2 bonus, you're talking about a 10-point return. So, like, that's really good for like a modest 5.5. So I do think it's going to challenge the established thinking. What I think you could do is you could get too drunk on CBAT, and I think when you look at my draft at the very end, I've probably got too drunk on CBAT. But I think there's a nice middle ground. Robert Uckey said in the chat, it's only 2 points. It is only 2 points. Like, I don't think you should be looking at your team and loading them to the teeth with CBAT players throughout your squad. But I think for defenders, I think it's huge. I think it's a game changer, and I think if you can combine it with players that are actually do the good stuff, do the clean sheets, do the goals, like Milenkovic is absolutely huge, because he does a bit of everything. I think he was doing goal line clearances and everything mixed under it. So he's a player, I think, who could do really well with a good fixtures.
You could have an absolute haul from a defender, couldn't you, in some of these games?
Could.
Like you said, like you could have 3 bonus points, cheeky assists, two defensive contribution points, bonus, but they could rack them up. I mean, Nacho, we've said there about wing backs, full backs, we've said about centre backs. This isn't just for them either, though, is there? Because there are some midfielders that are going to actually get a few points because of this. We've got players like Declan Rice, we've got Rodri, we've got Caicedo, we've got Bruno Fernandes. Any of those slightly more in your thoughts now, when considering, a season ago, they would never have been in our thoughts because you don't pick players like that. But now that they could earn an extra 2 points, are they more in your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously for midfielders, for those that know, 12 defensive contributions, and they also have recoveries included, which again, recoveries is the big thing for midfielders, similar to that of clearances for defenders. You got to focus on recoveries and tackles for midfielders. That's kind of the 2 that you really want to focus on. If we're looking at like the cheap options, someone like an Andre at Wolves has stood out. I think he's really good in the recoveries department, which is fantastic. Also somebody I believe who cropped up with a couple of attacking contributions as well. Coming in at 5.5 million, though, is a little bit disappointing, so we don't know exactly what Wolves are going to be like. I think a lot of people are talking about Bruno Fernandes, to be honest with you. I think this is one of those players where we know that he racked up a decent haul this season gone by in a woeful Man United team. And we're looking at some of the defensive contributions for him. He's averaging 6.5 recoveries per 90 minutes. If he can, accumulate 2.5 tackles per 90 as well, there's an opportunity there for him to maybe crop up a couple of 2 defensive contribution points along the way, as well as his attacking returns. The problem with Bruno Fernandes, the opening fixtures are so damn bad. It's one to monitor on him. But yeah, I like it for the midfielders, but I wouldn't get drunk on this thing. I think if there's someone sitting around 5 million that emerges as a bit of a beast, happy days. But I personally am not looking to spend 5.5 million on a midfielder that is just like a Caicedo, who on the odd game will get me defensive contributions. I don't think it is enough of a factor for me to justify it. And I think some managers should tread carefully if they are like, I'm going to pay 6 million for a guy who could get me 2 points. I just don't think it's worth it in that situation.
Yeah. I do agree with you about Bruno as well. I do think that United's first 38 weeks look tough, so it's going to be hard to it's going to be hard to invest in him at most of the season. Right.
I've seen Bruno, just to kind of touch on a quick point about Bruno, and I think Nacho's hit the nail on the head. I think when you see the headline graphics from FPL, for muds, it's talking about Caicedo and Elliot Anderson and boys like that, but I had a bit of a look at the kind of top end of the game, who are the biggest scorers from last season and who would have kind of really kicked on with defensive contributions. And I think Salah's obviously a standout player, so he doesn't really need DC points as such, but Salah got none. Isaac got none. Watkins got none. Yeah. Haaland got none. But Bruno Fernandes got 22 DC points. And that's because he has all action. He makes a lot of recoveries in the game. So you're looking at him. The immediate reaction, I think, on Twitter was that some people felt that 9 was expensive. But I'm not really sure it is. Because there's a mud who can score goals. He's got set pieces. He's got pens. I think when the fixtures do turn for United a bit, and they've obviously got targets now because Bumo's joined. He released a really kind of weird interstellar leaving video from Brentford, by the way. Bumo's joined and Cunha's joined. So he's got 2 targets that he can hit in the team in terms of goal scoring people as well. So I do think Bruno's one to watch, but when the fixtures get good.
Yeah, that's the thing. When the fixtures get good, and obviously it's not a great start for them. Moving on to the most controversial change that came, and that is the AFCON transfers. So this is that all managers will be topped up to the maximum number of 5 free transfers in game week 16 before AFCON starts. So no matter how many transfers you've got, you are going to have 5 free transfers in game week 16, which you can use however you like, but obviously the point is that is there for you to take out your African players and you can put in players that are not going to AFCON. And doesn't mean you can put them back in again, by the way. You're going to have to think about that. So when Salah comes back, you're going to have to put him back in. But it does mean that every single player gets 5 free transfers in game week 16. So you don't want to be going into game week 14 or 15, banking 4 free transfers because everybody's going to have 5 again. So this was controversial when it happened, Nacho. Dust has settled. It's been a couple of days since it's been announced. How do you feel about it now?
So I think when it first came out, I think everybody had the same reaction. We were like, this is absolutely woeful. Because I think everybody was like, this is just terrible. Because they were on a bit of a run. I think we were delighted with the defensive contributions. I think we were somewhat happy with the chips. And this dropped, everyone was like, what the hell? Alongside also the bloody website UI, but we'll talk about it another time. So I think this was one of those where it definitely catered towards those people who just play the game like all my workmates, put the game on a Saturday morning, update their team. Happy days. They'll land on African Cup of Nations, realize they got 5 free transfers, kind of like a get out of jail free card in that situation. On the flip side, I do believe that those that are active on the game can make this work. 5 free transfers given to us in game week 16 means that in preparation ahead of game week 15, if you were able to get yourself to 5 free transfers, you could almost change up your team in game week 15 with 5 transfers, and then once again get yourself 5 additional ones in game week 16. So I think there is definitely some smart ways to move around this. You know, you don't want to go to game week 16 with 4 transfers and then they just give you 1. Like, you're not really utilizing what they are gifting you in game week 16. So I'm still not for it. I still don't like it, but I think we can be smart with it and get some decent returns.
Yeah, and surely, because all I keep seeing is that all this does is help casuals. All this does is help casuals, and they're going to catch us up. But if you're an engaged manager and you think that you're good at planning, why are you worried that they might start, getting a little bit closer to you? Surely you're good enough to not worry about what they're doing. Isn't that right, Hibbo? Why are we so worried about these managers that, don't know what they're doing? Like, surely it should be a good challenge to try and beat them, even though they've got a few more transfers just to help them through the AFCON.
I agree. And I think the term casual over the years has kind of come a bit played out, because who's casual anymore? Like, if you look around your money leagues, like the standard of play in money leagues now is just really, really good because of the amount of content that's out there, the amount of information that people can get on the tap of a button on their phone. They can pick a really good team. So I think more people are clued on than what managers think when they use the term casual. But no, at the very start, when I saw the AFCON transfer thing, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I saw people ranting about it on Twitter, and some guy on Twitter came on and says, "You only hit this chip because you're institutionally racist." And I thought that was quite funny, because that's obviously not the case. I think it's a good way to keep people engaged in the game. At that point, just before Christmas, people start to drop off. They've wasted their team down. They maybe lose a bit of interest in their money leagues. This gives them an opportunity to revitalise. If somebody's going to give me 5 free transfers, I'm going to take them with both hands. And I think what you guys are saying is completely correct. Don't be going on the game week 16 with 3 transfers and only getting topped up by an extra 2. Empty the tank. Make sure that you get the 5 and use them as best as you can. And on my head, I think front load your season, and front load by thinking, well, once I get that midpoint, I'm effectively going to have an extra wild card, and that's how I'm going to think about it myself whenever it comes to time, because that Christmas planning period can be particularly tricky, and I think we kind of have a fairly easy out, and maybe you have the opportunity to switch about premiums. I think if we're thinking about these defenders that are doing well for like defensive contribution points, maybe they become the kind of mainstay locks in their team, and instead when we have transfers we say, well, we flip Palmer to Saka, or we flip Words to Marmoush, and they're the kind of luxury transfers that you can make to chase point holes that we couldn't at times. At times you might see a luxury transfer and you think, I can't really do that because I'm trying to play super tight. I don't want to take a hit, so yeah. I think it's promoting people to play a more aggressive game, and I think it's going to be exciting all around.
And also, it's happened. It's not changing. It is there, and it is 100% happening. So you might as well try and be positive about it and think, right, how can I utilise this in the best way? It could be that you use your chips in this time. 5 free transfers are planned for chips, knowing that you've got your wild card and all that kind of stuff as well. I think there are some avenues to use this really, really well. So we might as well look to see if we can use it and utilise it. And again, it's going to be really interesting to see how different people use it as well. Moving on from AFCON, we've got some position changes. A lot of these were, I think you would expect it, to be honest, but there were 1 or 2 surprises. We had Ndai is now a midfielder. He was a forward last year. He could be on penalties for Everton at the moment. We've got Gakpo, who's moved to a midfielder as well instead of a forward. Marmoush, which is quite a big one, moved from forward to midfielder. Mateus Nunes, who currently is probably Man City's right back, moved from midfielder to defender, which is good. Cunha moved to midfielder. Big one, Jared Bowen moving from midfielder to forward. Nacho, Bowen's the one that sticks out quite a lot there for me. Midfielder to forward, that really hurts him, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, again, I need to have a little bit more thought about it on how it truly impacts him, especially in the bonus points department. I'm not as clued up on like the ins and outs of it as others, but I mean, 1 less point for a goal, clean sheet gets wiped out for him as well, into a pool of forwards where I feel like a couple of years ago, there literally were no forwards in FPL. I remember there was a time where I think we had Haaland, and then just none of the top teams had any forwards. going into this season, it does feel like there are forwards who are going to emerge. I mean, Chelsea now have João Pedro available. If Arsenal actually wake up and sign somebody, that is going to be an option. We're looking at possibly like what's that?
Well, Gyökeres they've got now, haven't they?
They got Gyökeres.
Here we go. Yeah.
Wait, today?
Yeah.
This evening?
Yeah, so he's got here we go. Yeah, he's definitely going, yeah.
Oh, I've been at football. So I've missed that. Okay, so Gyökeres has got to come in, which is great for the game. And also Ekitike coming in at Liverpool. So Bowen going in as a forward is just not ideal at all. I think the pool of players is so big. And I think 8 million is such an awkward price point to justify him in that side. And I haven't seen enough from West Ham to see them as a team pushing on under Graham Potter. The investment hasn't been there right now. So sadly, I think this is a moment of silence for Jarrod Bowen as an FPL player.
Oh, what about Cunha, Hibbo? Cunha going down to midfielder, Marmoush going down to midfielder as well. Surely that's quite nice, isn't it? Getting those two in midfield. I mean, Cunha was an absolute beast for bonus points last year, playing as a forward.
I didn't really see the Cunha thing happening, and you and I had a conversation about it the last time we potted, and you were kind of more pro that you felt it could happen. Yeah. I didn't really think it was going to happen, but once I had looked at average possession, and that's basically what people will always say, Mark. That's basically what the game's going to look at. They're going to look at how many times did you play left wing, how many times did you play attacking midfielder versus how many times did you play striker. And Bowen obviously outnumbered it last year, and that's why they've moved him to being a front man, which isn't ideal for him. But I think Cunha, brief look, I think he would have been 22 points to the good. Yeah. 15 goals and 7 clean sheets at Wolves, but you obviously have to factor in what's he going to do at United in terms of goal scoring. How are United going to be defensively? I think Marmoush would have been 15 points better off. Now, Marmoush is an interesting one because he effectively only played half the season. He was obviously a beast for Frankfurt. He comes in at a decent price, and I think those early... I've been tinkering with him in drafts. I think those early fixtures for Man City from a goal scoring point of view are really, really hot. And Dye was another one you had mentioned. And over the season, I think he had 114 points. But because he scored 9 goals and Everton kept 15 clean sheets, he would have been 24 points better off. And then he's actually quite good for DC. So there's a couple of players that have kind of emerged. I think Ndeye could be a good cheap option too for Everton if he happens to keep penalties. Do you know, McNeil's obviously going to come back on the side. Does he potentially take them off him? He was on them last season, so I think it's a kind of watch and wait and see. But I do think it's an interesting one. I think Cunha at 8 million. When the United fixtures get good, you could be Cunha and Bruno. It's...
We're not even talking about Mbumo there. Talking about prices of players as well. We've also got up on the screen the most expensive players this season. So we've got Salah at 14.5, Haaland at 14. I'm not going to lie, I actually think they priced that pretty well, to be perfectly honest. I saw some people saying that there was going to be a 1.5 million difference between the two, and I thought it's just too much. I think 0.5 makes a lot of sense, and then it's a massive drop down to Isak at 10.5, Palmer 10.5, Saka at 10, and then you got Bruno, Watkins at 9 with Wirtz at 8.5. Nacho, I think they've kind of smashed it with pretty much all this prices this year. There's not been too many prices I've been like, whoa, where's that come from? The only thing I'd maybe say is defenders, I'm surprised 6 is the highest for defenders. But apart from that, I've got no qualms with the pricing.
No, I actually think they've done all right. I think was it last season or the season before where we were like, whoa, what is going on here? It was chaos really. And anybody that has been building drafts, I mean, anyone that's found it easy, fair play to you. Because I think it's been really difficult to build a draft where everybody has been very, very content. Now, naturally, and it's always been the case each and every season, you take out Haaland, you take out Mo Salah, you can build a fantastic, well-rounded team, but you're taking that big risk. Those guaranteed, well, quote-unquote guaranteed captaincy options that you can fall back on each and every week. And that is the big issue when we are looking to move out Salah and Haaland. I'm going to say, I don't think you can have Salah and Haaland in a team. I've tried it. I think you just have to make too many sacrifices in the team. And what I always look for in the sides is, we know there is nobody at City or Liverpool that can keep up with these two players. But can we find somebody at the cheaper alternative that doesn't necessarily be a better player, but is just somebody who can tick along nicely. I think Wirtz is fantastic. I think he is just he's not world class, but I think he has the potential to be. And I think Marmoush is a fantastic option if they do put him in central zones. So I'm really excited to monitor those, because I think it's going to be very popular to do Salah plus Marmoush or Haaland plus Wirtz. I think that is going to be the combination that a lot of managers do go down to get exposure in both teams.
Well, we're bringing this up already, Hibbo. Can Wirtz cover Salah? Can Marmoush cover Haaland? Can we do things like that, or is it better to have the double up? What's your take at the moment? We could now talk about this for like another hour or two, but obviously I'm trying to quickly get little bits out of both of you. But what do you think, Hibbo?
The double up doesn't work.
Ooh.
Well, I mean,
do you mean Salah and Haaland? Sorry.
I mean, Salah and Haaland draft, that just doesn't work. It stresses the price points of your team out way too much. I think Andy Martin did it, but he might have done it for a laugh, and like he had a load of like Leeds players and stuff in his team, and it just doesn't work. I think the point that you said, you had the nail in the head. Wirtz plus money isn't better than Salah. Like, I think you could have Salah and Wirtz.
Yeah.
Haaland, after last season, the fact that he did drop the 180-point season, he looked a wee bit limited. And I think going into this season, if you ask me which of those equations has the potential to be better, I think people are going to say Marmoush plus cash is going to be more likely to be better than Haaland, than Wirtz plus cash is going to be better than Salah. So I do think I like that price point of Marmoush. You know, they've got people... Marmoush is 8.5, Wirtz is 8.5. I think it's a great price for Wirtz. He's good numbers in the Bundesliga. I don't believe this concept of Bundesliga tax that people invented once upon a time because Timo Werner was absolutely shit. He's not. No, but he's not. He's not crap. Like, he's a good player. And we can't judge him by the same standard of like a fella that played once in the league many years ago. But I do think there's interchangeability in terms of those mids, and the fact that you've got Bruno, who's 9, you've got Cunha, who's 8, you've got Mbeumo. So I think having a good breadth of midfield players that you can kind of plug in, tick ones in and tick ones out as you move through the game weeks, I think it's probably the way to play. But I think right now, I'm kind of hot in Marmoush as a potential rival to Haaland. He's never going to completely match him, but I think him coming back to midfield, looking at the numbers he put up for Frankfurt, I think he's got potential as long as he starts. And if we look at that City team, they now have like a De Bruyne shaped hole. You know, he's not there anymore. So how do they play now going forward without Kevin De Bruyne? Does he play in the 10? Does he play centrally, as Nacho said? I think it's possible.
Tell you what, imagine getting to game week 14, 15, having Marmoush, Salah and Mbeumo in your team, and then they all go off to AFCON. If only we had some extra transfers to sort that mess out, eh? Anyway, boys, this is it. Shall we have a look at some drafts? We've got over 300 people in the chat, which is lovely considering we're about 3 weeks away.
Hold on a minute. Are you going to drafts?
Yeah.
Drum roll.
Oh, lovely stuff. So, we have a drum roll because we're going to look at my draft, but Nacho's probably going to be the person that is most happy with my draft because I have triple Chelsea.
Here we go, baby.
Oh my God, I know. But Nkunku isn't there, so I apologise. Oh. But I've got Kelleher in goal. So, by the way, make sure you give a shout out to the graphics because this is how our graphics are going to look every week. We're going to have our team reveals looking like this and our points looking like this as well. So please, 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 chuck us some likes, and thank you very much for the graphics team at Scout because this is just looks lovely. So I've got Kelleher in goal at the moment with Petrovic on the bench. I quite like the Petrovic one. I think people are avoiding Bournemouth quite a lot because of their opening fixture, but I think they'll be okay moving forward. They need a few more signings still, but I don't mind them. Then I've got Cucurella, Konsa and Wan-Bissaka at the back. They're my back three with Truffer, who is the latest Bournemouth left back who's replacing Kirkes, with Goodmanson as well, who's a Leeds defender who I'm hoping will play, but he's only 4 mil. Then I've got Salah as captain, Palmer as vice-captain. I've got Kudus in the middle with Wirtz and Enzo Lafay, who I'm actually quite hot on, and I think I probably will start the season with him unless he gets injured. And then I got Pedro Solanke and Wissa up top. Now, if I just talk you through this very quickly, and Hibbo, you better wipe that smirk off your face. I am looking at this team. So I haven't gone where Hibbo went. Hibbo, I had a look at both of your drafts. Nacho is going down the route of, yeah, I'm an experienced FPL manager and I know who to pick. Hibbo's gone down the route of defensive contributions. Let's make sure I put all those guys in. So I've gone down the route of, I've gone down the route of, actually, I think I've only got one defender that's 6, the rest are 4.5 or less. I really wanted to get Palmer in. And as soon as you put Salah and Palmer in, you just trying to get up to a 9 million striker is really tough. So I've just gone 7.5, 7.5, and then Wissa. I don't think Wissa's going to be in there because it looks like he's going to be off to Newcastle. So I'm not loving the strike in 3. I don't mind Pedro. I mean, I was going to ask you, Nacho, before I get on to some of my other players. I've got triple Chelsea in there. The fixtures are lovely. I don't mind the players I've picked. But with Club World Cup, how are you feeling about picking any Chelsea, and have I got the right 3, do you think?
I mean, I would always choose 3 players from a title-winning team this season, so I think you've done well with that selection.
Best in the world.
But Cucurella is great. I'm interested to see whether he can actually match the goal-scoring contributions that he had last season, because it was a bit, I wouldn't say it was an anomaly, but he really did come in clutch in some of those games where we were kind of devoid of some ideas. I think with the signings that we made with Gittins, Estevao coming in, I think we might play slightly differently. We might not see Cucurella advance into those higher positions, so just keep an eye on that. In terms of João Pedro, obviously the Club World Cup, everyone's bullish on him now. I still think he's great, but I also do think it's a guy who's been in the Premier League for a long old time now, and he's never got huge returns, like big numbers. So I just want to know whether he can actually get up to that next level, or whether he's going to be a bit more of a connector in the team. So I like João Pedro. I'm bullish on him. I just don't know whether he's got 12 goals plus in him, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one with those because I am worried that there's going to be some rest there. I'm interested in the fact that I've somehow got double Spurs in my team. But Kudus, I think, is good value at 6.5 million. Solanke is a striker. Like I said, it's really tough trying to pick strikers at that price range because as soon as you go below them, there's nothing there. So I feel like having a striker at 5.5, there's no way you're really going to change them unless you upgrade them. So I don't really like the idea of having a striker that's less than 6.5-ish. So I've gone for that at the moment. Wirtz, I just think I've gone for him because I don't want to not have him and he explodes because he's going to be very highly owned. And he could, I mean, it's Friday night. He's going to be playing all along that top. I think he could do bits to Bournemouth. And Bournemouth, unless they make a few more signings, could struggle in that first game. There's definite question marks here. Unlucky. I've got to obviously do a few more drafts and make a few changes. I like Kelleher in goal, but if I'm honest, I think Brentford are going to struggle this year. They've lost so many good players, and I do think they're going to struggle. They've struggled defensively anyway, and I've got no hope in Keith Andrews. So there are things I quite like in this team, but there's a lot of changes to be made yet. But I didn't think I'd have triple Chelsea. Cucurella could be Kirkes, could be Gabriela Saliba. It could be any of those. Yeah, could be. Let's have a look at Nacho's draft then and see Colwell and his team. Let's have a look. Oh, lovely. Do you know what? I looked at your team and I did quite like us. Talk us through it.
Okay, so I thought I would, bring the bench boost vibes to the team selection because that's currently where I'm at. So I have obviously had to make some sacrifices in the team to accommodate it with the bench.
Can I just say, by the way, Sanchez looks very different.
This is taking the mick here. Because Petrovic obviously came into Chelsea thinking to be number 1. So he's been mugged off here. No, that is clearly not Sanchez. No.
Yeah.
So goalkeepers wise, I've gone for Sanchez and Areola. I actually think Sanchez isn't bad at 5 million. Is that right? 5 million? So
yeah,
I don't think he's too bad. Areola at 4.5 is okay. For a Sunderland away as part of a bench boost, I think he's nice, and then you can just stash him away really over the long term until you wildcard. The 5 defenders that I've gone for similar strategy, 1 premium in Gabriel. Yes, Man United away isn't fantastic, but I still think Arsenal are the best defensive team in the league, and Gabriel is obviously great from set pieces. I still think that'll be the case going into this season. I've got your doggy at Spurs, Pedro Porro being 1 million expensive, very difficult for me to justify putting him in right now. And your dog has actually been okay for some of the numbers that he racks up. Van der Ven, one to monitor as well for defensive contributions. Consa, my boy, always steps up when I need him. He's currently in because the long-term fixtures for Villa are decent. I can never pronounce it, but is it De Cooper? Brighton's new boy?
Yeah.
He
looks good.
Everybody was bullish on him in the Euros or World Cup. Didn't really get the minutes. Obviously, with Stupidan leaving, I think he is being brought in to basically start for them. Fulham at home's great. And then, no idea who that bloke is. I'm going to be honest with you. Esteve from Burnley, but he's 4 million. And I think he's got a great fixture in game week 2 that can help me out. Midfielders-wise, Salah, Palmer, Rodgers, Kudus, and Nonto of Leeds with that home game against Everton, really, for the bench boost. I think Rodgers at 7 million. We had it last season where we kept saying to ourselves, you know what? Is he actually really worth it? I still think he's great at 7 million. I think Villa's fixtures are still really good long term. So I'm pretty bullish on Rodgers as a pick. Similar to yourself, Kudos in the team. And the front three, I've got Solanke, Watkins, and Danny Welbeck. Again, what we saw with Thomas Frank, I'm just so bullish on him as a manager. What he'd done at Brentford with Ivan Toney in the Championship of the Premier League. He then elevated in Buemo and Vissa. And last season, he got the best out of Sade. So he clearly can get the best out of attacking players. And I think he will with Solanke. And Watkins, I think at 9 million, I think he's being massively overlooked right now. So that's the team. We've got Old Man Welbs as well, the last forward there, whether he can make it or not to the first game week. So I'm pretty happy, but this is definitely going to change.
When you get to game week 1 deadline, tell me now, honestly, do you think you're going to be Willie in or Willie out? Willie Nonto, obviously. Like,
of course,
do you think he's going to be in your draft or out of your draft?
Behave.
Sorry.
I am always,
sorry.
Yeah, I always like to have it out, but in this case, he might be.
I'll leave it on that one. Hibbo, let's have a look at your draft, my man, because you're the only one going for a 3-5-2.
I'm the DEFCON guy. DEFCON AFC, I call this team.
DEFCON 5.
But I'll just run through kind of from back to front for people that listen to this on podcast platforms. So on nets, I've got Kevin Kelleher, Brentford goalkeeper, and I've gone for Valdemarson as sub as well. So like you've got the 8.5 duo from Brentford. Gabriel, I'm not overly hot in the clean sheet, how the fixtures look for Arsenal over the first 6, but they're still ranked top for clean sheets, so I've gone for Gabriel. Virgil, Liverpool's fixtures are good. He seems to do okay for DC points, so I've put him on. Tarkowski is in there. So's Konza and so's Mark Gahey of Crystal Palace. So basically what I've done here, from a kind of team generation point of view, I haven't gone for a dead spot defender. And what I've decided to do is I've decided to dead spot one of my forwards. Now, the reason for this is I think defenders are going to be quite important this year. I think they're going to do well for points. I think hybrid formations could become a bit of a thing. But I also think there's such a pool of good players in midfield, and I don't really see the forwards as being the same. That could obviously change with Gyökeres now joining the league. So I'll go through midfield. So I've gone for Salah captain, Palmer vice, Damsgaard, who might be a wee bit of a left field pick. He does well for DC. If Wassa goes, he takes a lot of set pieces for Brentford. Maybe he gets pens. He could change. Rodri's on there. Rodri doesn't come up in any of the defensive contribution analysis because he didn't play enough last season. But the season before that, he had roughly about 150 points because he started chipping on my goals and he started chipping on my assists. And I'm starting thinking, could he be the kind of player that chips on with some goals and assists but also does really well for DC? And he's maybe about a sleeper pick at 6.5, possibly. Wirtz is on there now at the minute. And then up front, I've gone for Evan Nielsen and Solanke. So, yeah, in terms of the bench, Valdemarson, Konza, Gahey, and then I've gone for a dead spot forward whose name I don't even know. This will obviously change, but for me, it's about trying out price points, seeing how I view the game overall. Like, so for example, like both of you guys have the Burnley 4 million defender, Esteve, or he seems to be very popular in the community. He seems to be very template, whereas my thinking is slightly different. I'm thinking, why have him when you could have a Gahey or a Konza? because like in years gone by, we had 4.5 million midfielders who played.
Yeah.
We don't have any. We don't have any of them. Last season, we had like 5.5 million forwards who were starters. You know, you had João Pedro and people like that. We don't have that this year. So I think in terms of the pricing, I think it's a big challenge. So I think let's see what price Gyökeres comes in at. Like if he comes in at 9, that could kind of shake up me thinking a wee bit as to how I want to structure my team. Do I want to play or do I want to start with a 3-5-2? I think I might move away from that, or else I slot him in where Evan Nielsen is and make a couple of downgrades elsewhere. But I think it's an interesting game. You know, there's the opportunity to kind of swerve the AFCON thing and say, I'm going to take Tarkowski down to a 4.5 because there are good playing 4.5s. No, I would probably keep Gabriel and Virgil. Damsgaard, I like your guys' drafts with Kudus on them. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
When I saw
like
Kudus in the team with that fixture straight out the gate, I kind of thought, that looks nice. And when I looked at Nacho's draft with Areola and Nets, I think that could be a decent pick as long as you maybe pair him with somebody else that you could rotate.
My worry is when Gyökeres comes in, I think I'm going to have him. I really think I see he gets a bit of criticism, and you know people think he's not going to be that great. I think I'm going to have him. And Sod's Law is going to score against Amorim first game. Like you know that's going to happen.
Havertz.
Yeah, I can't see them.
Havertz just disappears.
Who? Yeah. What's this?
Gyökeres.
With Gyökeres, yeah.
There's a lot of weird narrative around him where people are saying he's going to be a minutes risk, and I think it's absolute nonsense. I think he's going to tear the Premier League apart. I think he's going to be unreal.
No.
What price do we think?
I think 9 or 9.5. I think.
Yeah, I think 9. Same as Watkins.
That's a good marker. I think that's fair, given that we don't really know if he'll have pens or not. But I think I'm definitely very bullish in Gyökeres. Like, so I'm interested to see. And it's the one thing missing from all our teams. Like, we don't really have a piece of Arsenal attack.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're looking at Saka sitting at 10 million, I looked at Saka and kind of felt like he maybe could have come down 500,000. Do you know? But he didn't. They've kind of held him at the same price. But I think having a way into that Arsenal attack for slightly cheaper would be good.
Yeah, I agree. Right then, boys. We've come to the end of our first proper show back with our new graphics and our lovely viewers. We had over 400 people watching tonight, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us. If this is a first time watching, or if you've been watching a few times, obviously FPL has launched. Make sure you go and have a look at the members area for Scout, 47% off at the moment if you use our codes as well. So make sure you have a look at those. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. And hopefully you'll be joining us as the season goes on, because we really are here for you for the entire time as well. We also, and Nacho, we didn't touch on this, we don't have just one community team this year, do we?
No, we do not. We have a new community team that has been emerged. I think the problem is, people have found out we are very easy to beat, and they have decided, why not we get another team to beat them? And that is what is happening this season. So we've got 2 teams that we're going to lose to, which is a little bit devastating. So we have to up our standards, boys, honestly. Like, one of us has got to bring down this community onslaught. Otherwise, we're going to have tens after us next year.
I finished 82k and I was the lowest ranked out of all of us. So it's not an easy one to do. But it's we got 2 community teams this year, headed up by Brian and Matt. So they have got all their people behind them, and they're going to be basically trying to beat us. And obviously, they'll know that if they beat us, that I'll do the forfeit. But they know that you 2 won't. So I'm not really sure what they're getting out of it.
I'm doing my forfeit next week.
100%. Yes, and we should have some community team previews next week. They're gonna try and get a team together so we can see what we're up against, see what kind of things they're going for a little bit.
Good, lovely stuff. Hibbo, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We are back. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Loved it as always. It's always nice to see my 2 boys on a Tuesday night. Do you know what I mean? And it's nice to have a game. Do you know? And it's nice to see a bit of positivity about the game after all the AFCON debacle. Like, everybody's kind of settle down a bit, finally. But no, I'm excited for the season ahead. I'm looking forward to seeing what price Gyökeres comes in at and see how drafts change, because obviously templates are what they are, but they morph as we start to approach the start of the season, and I think that's exciting to watch too.
Exactly. And Nacho, thanks so much for joining us this evening, my man. Good to have you back. Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, so good, boys. Honestly, it's got me away from all the Love Island talk that I see on a Tuesday night. So this is delightful. And yeah, we're going to have so much to talk about each week. Our draft's going to be completely different. We've got Gyökeres price, Ekitike's price coming in. So if you haven't already, guys, make sure you are tuned into next week's, because there's lots of stuff that is still to be spoken about.
Exactly. We'll let you get back to Love Island and talk about Willie in, Willie out again. Thank you so much for all those people that have joined us this evening. Thank you all those people that listen on the pod afterwards as well, or all those people that watch us after the stream. Thank you to all of you, and we hope to see you again more this season. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.